I'm here with Michael Sipe, the founder of Sipe Coaching and Consulting. Michael, tell us how you got started as an entrepreneur. What's your background?
Yeah, my background is I was a Navy pilot and airline pilot and had been involved with a lot of technical sides of that world, and I really enjoyed technology. So later on in my career, after I got out of the service, I started doing innovation consulting, innovation development. And in that process, I became aware of not only new technologies, but new services, new ways of doing things and being creative. And what struck me after a while was that a number of businesses or inventions fail. And I was like, well, what's normal? And it turns out that 85 to 90% of all new products and services actually never make it to market. So an engineer, a scientist can be in the lab and they can develop something really cool, really neat, but then translating that into a product that people will use, that people will trust, that they will value, wasn't always that successful. And so there were two things that really stuck out to me and really launched me into the entrepreneur space is how do you get a new product to the market? And what I found after a lot of study was that usually it's people involved. It's always people, but there are two aspects of that. One aspect is that birth of that new idea has to go through all the different segments of the business. And those different segments can be the marketing department, or it can be the legal department. It can also be doing some testing with it in the market itself, so giving it to customers and doing the things we call beta testing, where we try it out to see is that really what the customer needs or wants. So there's so many places along the way where it is very people dependent on whether an idea will make it all the way through. And so when you think about the telephone game where you say whisper a sentence to somebody and you go around the circle and everybody has to repeat it, but they have to whisper to each other, and by the time it comes back around, that message is not the same message. It's never the same message. So the idea of how do you get that all the way through is really one so dependent on people. And what I have found is that the more energized, the more engaged that a workforce is about that product or idea, the more successful it is. And so if you can boost one's revenue by making that more reliable, then how does one do that? And so in the entrepreneur space, I launched into, okay, how do you make an energized and engaged workforce where they contribute and do that more holistically? So when I looked into that, I realized that coaching on how to be a better person, how to be a better leader, how to create a culture where people feel valued, where they feel included, means that they will go that extra step to make sure that that idea or that product gets to where it needs to go. And then what that means is cross division, cross work centers, that they operate more as a team. And that creates a very powerful force within a company. So whether it's a law firm, whether it's a new technology, whether it's software, all those things are highly dependent on where these people are in terms of how they feel they contribute to the company. And so my role in starting my own company was to get the idea of how do you create a culture where people feel valued, included, not dependent on race, not dependent on culture, not dependent upon education, but one where they feel like they belong and that they're part of a family, kind of, whether it's a small unit of 2 or 3 people or a larger 20,000, 30,000 size company. It's dependent upon the people feeling like they have a say. And whether that's a democratic kind of environment, whether it's one where there are all these great perks and benefits, there are many different ways of creating that environment. It's all unique to each one. And what I like about my business is I can go in, meet with leaders, talk through how do they create that culture and see where they are and assess on that. And so I've got some programs and some well-tested methodologies that have been used by many Fortune 500 companies on how to evaluate workforce culture. And then from there, launch into, hey, how do we scale your company? How do we make it bigger? How do we generate more revenue? Because the more revenue you generate, the more people will feel that they're a part of that and they're contributing to that. And that gives a sense of camaraderie, it gives a sense of hey, we really did something significant. And oh, by the way, our customers love our products. They love coming and finding out what our new things are. And we generate brand loyalty because we've created that company culture that's so powerful. It's so energetic. It's got a vitality. And so for me, when I found out from Jason Miller that he was looking to form a new company for small businesses to help them scale, to help them grow quickly, I'm like, oh, you need culture. How do you create the culture? How do you create the innovation, the new products that will help launch you into that new space? And so for me, it was a great fit to be able to say, hey, let's take 10 different people from all business backgrounds, pull them together and go, what are the best practices? What are the ways that we can help small business scale and grow? Because they don't have the budgets that a large company would have. They don't have the investment pool to be strong enough to withstand 2 years worth of being at the low end and then working their way up. So how do you take a business that's maybe stagnated? How do you take a business that's just getting off the ground and launch them to that next level? And to me, an essential piece of that is knowing your people, understanding what role they play, articulating that well, and then rewarding where they are in that process and how well they are contributing to that. And then by doing so, I think what you find is people feel like business, where they work, that business is home. They feel like, oh, I belong here and I'm contributing. And when you have that kind of a workforce, it is so powerful, because in the downturns when the economy tanks or we have restrictions like COVID and things like that, then people become much more reliable and much more committed to ensuring that that company is going to be doing well. And from a leadership perspective, that means one's not putting out all the fires all the time. I see time and time again where business owners, CEOs, senior managers, C-suite folks feel like they always have to put out fire after fire after fire. And that's usually because it's a top-down driven sort of command and control kind of structure where they dictate how people should act, how they should be working. And that's fine to a point, but then people don't feel empowered to contribute. And that contribution comes when they do feel empowered. And so for me, from the innovation side, where I've seen new technologies are fantastic and I've seen them fail, I always go back to it's the people. And there's study after study, places that really enjoy creating cultures where people feel valued. And you can name the large ones, the big companies, or you can talk about the small mom and pop ones where they just feel like, hey, I've worked here 20 years. I love working here. I love my job. I've always had upward employment. I could always move up or move over to another section that really interested me. And I'm not going to leave. And when you have that kind of a dedicated employee, you know, the sky's the limit for a company. And so that's my sort of mission in life, is to create fulfillment for leaders and managers, and so that it sets the tone where the people beneath them feel like they're valued and that they're making a big difference.
What an incredible business. Impressive background. It's easy to see why you're on the board.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here and for joining us.
Sure, thanks.